The following program, Norml Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Norml Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Norml. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Norml Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Norml's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belvin.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Thursday, May 10th, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to our show. We're so glad to have you here. We have got a show just jam-packed with news and information for you today, so we're going to get right to it by introducing our senior news editor from Astoria, Oregon, the lovely Cannabis Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Thanks for pronouncing that correctly.
Well, you're welcome. I do what I can. Folks, it's Astoria because it's not Astoria. John Jacob Uster was not a person. So there you go.
Usually you say Grasstoria.
I know. I usually say Grasstoria. Today I went with Astoria. I don't know why. Just the way it goes sometimes. But Carrie's got our hemp headlines ready to go for us. What's in the news today?
We have all kinds of news today. I'm excited about the hemp headlines today because we've got some video for you as well. Colorado has an interesting subject that they're talking about in their city council, and it's interesting to see who's backing this issue. Plus, we're going to see Colorado's first TV ad. We have a sneak preview of that. We're also going to talk about a lawsuit in Arizona that's having all of the legal watchers scratching their head. But first up, some outrageous comments from a presidential nominee, Mitt Romney. We're going to start today's headlines with that story.
Oh, yeah. You can't wait until you see that, folks. It's pretty amazing. Also, I'm getting note from Skunk4201 in the chat room to tell me that the appeals courts, the federal appeals courts, have accepted the challenge on the DEA's marijuana research denial. If you know about that case, that's where MAPS and Dr. Craker have been trying to get legitimate, legal marijuana from the federal government to do legitimate studies on it. It was approved by the DEA. The NIDA has blocked them. We've taken it to court. We were denied. Apparently, the appeals court is going to take a look at that, so that's good news. We'll cover more of that tomorrow. Also, we've got an update on the case of New Jersey weed man who was facing charges on possession and trafficking of marijuana. Some good news, some bad news in that case, so stick around for that. Also on today's show, it's time for Groovin' Thursday, and I have been talking about this band all week long, the FNAs. I love these guys. We're going to play some more music from the FNAs off their CD, this little EP we've got. A song called Gypsy, so stick around for that. At half past, we got Terry Nelson from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition to tell us why cops say legalize drugs, and he's got a chilling story about a grandmother who has been sentenced to life for a first-time nonviolent marijuana offense, or a nonviolent drug offense, I should say. And then at the end of the show, time for a little radical rant. I'm going to take a look at the wink, wink, nudge, nudge world of Oregon dispensaries with a little bit of video from our state's largest newspaper as well. Plus, more of the U.S. House in hour 2. Stick around. It's Norml Show Live.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Norml. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of Norml attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Norml Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say it.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or a flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Elliot Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Norml News with Cannabis Carrie.
And our top story today, at a campaign stop in Colorado, Mitt Romney showed his battle fatigue yesterday by getting testy with a reporter that wasn't asking him questions about the economy. The presumed Republican presidential nominee was doing a TV interview with a CBS affiliate and seemed to be annoyed with a string of questions about marriage between same-sex couples. The reporter was asking questions that she read off a paper that was emailed in from viewers. He restated his position that he is against gay marriage and civil unions. The next question she asked was if children of illegal immigrants should get in-state tuition. He does not think that they have that right. And then he was asked if he thinks that marijuana should be legalized for medical reasons. Romney, clearly frustrated with the question, asks if there weren't any significant issues that she would like to talk about. And that says that the country faces enormous issues like the economy, but if the reporter wanted to talk about medical marijuana, he would. Romney stated that he thinks marijuana is a gateway drug and then unequivocally states that marijuana should not be legal in this country. Now, we have the video for you, and I'm hoping, Russ, that you were able to grab that very end of the interview as well after Romney finally gets to talk for 5 minutes about the economy and jobs and how the current president has failed. Right at the very end, he does say to what he would assume is not being broadcast to the reporter that he thinks marijuana and gay rights are state issues. Did you have that part as well,
Yes,
Russ?
we've got the full video for you right here from
Let's
the
go to that
CBS
video,
affiliate in Colorado. Check it out.
But my view is the same as it's been from the beginning, which is I don't favor civil union if it's identical to marriage, and I don't favor marriage between people of the same gender.
If a civil union, if a bill granting civil union says this is not marriage, would you be open to it?
I'm not going to weigh in on Colorado's process. I had in my state a process relating to gay marriage and civil union. I expressed my view then, and it remains the same.
Should children brought here illegally by their parents and raised here receive in-state college tuition?
No. My view is that to receive in-state college tuition, a person should be a legal resident of the United States.
So medical marijuana is legal in Colorado. One of our viewers, Bill Ferguson, asked, should marijuana be legalized for medical use?
Aren't there issues of significance that you'd like to talk about?
This is a significant issue in Colorado.
The economy, the growth of jobs, the need to put people back to work, the challenges of Iran. We've got enormous issues that we face. But you want to talk? Go ahead. Do you want to talk about medical? I think marijuana should not be legal in this country. I believe it's a gateway drug to other drug violations. The use of illegal drugs in this country is leading to terrible consequences in places like Mexico and actually in our own country.
Okay.
I oppose legalization of marijuana. I oppose legalization of other kinds of drugs. But I can tell you that I have a plan to get this economy going.
Let's talk about the jobs.
All right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You just
Finally.
had to give me a
Finally. Yeah, we're getting marriage. We do. We're good at marijuana.
Thank you.
I'm not running on marriage and marijuana. Those are state issues, right?
Thank you.
Are they really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they could be federal issues.
Those are state issues, right? Aren't they? I clearly heard Mitt Romney say that gay marriage and medical marijuana are issues to be left up to the states. What an amazing evolution on his point of view on that. I'm not sure exactly if that's what he wanted people to hear from him, but kudos to you, Mitt, for saying it's up for the states to decide. Now let's get the federal government out of the way and let the states decide on medical marijuana and some of these other issues. And I just got to say, it's kind of funny to me. It seems to me like it was just a couple election cycles ago when GOP candidates for president couldn't stop talking about wedge issues like this, like equal marriage rights for gay people, or what happens to the children of undocumented immigrants, or what we're going to do about so-called Cheech and Chong medicine. Funny, now that those issues are much more popular and we have a growing Hispanic electorate, suddenly the GOP doesn't want to talk about those issues. For some reason, those aren't issues of significance anymore. Seems like he wants to rewind back to the Clinton era politics of it's the economy, stupid.
And the Denver City Council is considering a bill to ban outdoor advertising for medical marijuana businesses. The bill is aimed at areas that are within 1,000 feet of a school, daycare centers, parks, and recreation centers. But as we're learning in urban areas, that can be tricky to navigate. But as the Denver City Council met yesterday and discussed the outdoor advertising ban, they also talked about a blanket citywide ban as well. Now, that ban would effectively rid the city of billboards and sign flippers who are increasingly being used to advertise in sprawling cities. Sign flippers are the people that get paid to stand on busy corners with large signs who try to attract the attention of drivers by spinning the signs, waving, dancing, or any other means to get you to look at the advertising that they're holding. The council heard arguments about those signs that seem to be deceptive, advertising to non-medical consumers, and those that seemingly appeal to younger citizens. The meeting was well attended by advocacy groups representatives, and Councilwoman Debbie Ortega, who sponsored the bill, asked those representatives, quote, "Are you willing to support this and move forward?" She said that she understood that a ban that could stand up to a court challenge would have to be reasonable and be focused on children's safety. One group that has come out to support the measure is one of Colorado's medical marijuana lobbies, Medical Marijuana Industry Group, a trade association that represents over 50 medical marijuana businesses. Michael Elliott, a member of the group who attended that meeting, said that they see it as a necessary step to help clean up the industry. He said that the justification for a complete ban on that kind of advertising was to prevent the encouragement of non-qualifying patients to use the products. Councilwoman Ortega says she crafted the ordinance from the existing federal tobacco advertising laws and the 1998 Denver ordinance that restricts the locations that tobacco products can be advertised. At that time, the city council found evidence that tobacco product makers were encouraging in a concerted effort to encourage that use among younger and hipper smokers. She said that the purpose of the ban is to reduce the use and possession of minors. Now, after hearing arguments, the council will vote on this measure at the very next meeting.
Well, I don't know if anybody else senses the irony in a city that has a Coors Field worried about whether or not kids are going to see a medical marijuana advertisement. I mean, like Barney Frank said in the U.S. House floor yesterday, kids see all sorts of things that they aren't allowed to do. I don't know why we worry about them so much when it comes to medical marijuana. I do like the sign flipper that I saw that came along with that story, just because the sign said $20 an eighth. And that's one of the things we're seeing in Colorado is because so much competition in the marijuana market there that the prices are probably the lowest they've ever been in the United States, at least in the past 20 years or so. So, I mean, from a cannabis consumer's point of view, this is a good thing. But when it comes to this outdoor advertising and sign flippers and all of that, it's just odd how our First Amendment rights for free speech always have this drug war exception, right? In the case of of advertising these medical marijuana. They're worried about having too many people being advertised, that it might be being advertised to people who aren't qualified for medical marijuana, because by God, there's got to be something wrong with you in order to use marijuana. We'll keep an eye on how this turns out, but we've got other good news on First Amendment rights and the ads that are going around in Colorado. We'll get right to that.
That's right. We reported to you last month that the effort to legalize marijuana in Colorado had been given a recent financial gift from the Marijuana Policy Project. MPP had sponsored a money bomb and decided to give the benefits of that effort to Colorado's Amendment 64 to legalize marijuana in the state. And it was a big gift, $500,000, $500,000. That's the largest single donation given to the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol campaign. And that campaign promised that since the signature gathering stage was over, that they were going to use that money for TV ads. Well, tomorrow they're going to run their first television ad on May 11th during NBC's The Today Show. The ad will air in two other major spots, one on the very popular Ellen Show and the Mother's Day episode of The Doctors, as they try to grab that all-important mom vote. Now, in the ad, they focus on that as a young, fresh-faced college girl sits and thoughtfully emails her mom from her laptop, starting the conversation that can end prohibition. Betty Aldworth, the advocacy director for the campaign, says the goal with the new ad was to start the conversation about marijuana and encourage others to talk about it. The 30-second spot ends by asking viewers to visit talkitupcolorado.org, where voters can get more information from the campaign itself. Aldworth says that as more people open up and talk about marijuana, they find that it is objectively less harmful than alcohol and should be regulated as such. The goal of the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol seems to be encouraging young pro-cannabis voters to talk about the issue with older voters in their life, parents, grandparents, and others in the community. The campaign so far has been gaining momentum, and the polls are tight, but they are showing increasing support for this measure. So Colorado may well be on their way to celebrating legal marijuana come November. They are certainly running this campaign in a very positive way, and we have a sneak peek of that ad. Russ, can we run that?
Yeah, here we go.
Dear Mom, when I was in college, I used to drink a lot. It was kind of crazy. But now that I'm older, I prefer to use marijuana. It's less harmful to my body, I don't get hungover, and honestly, I feel safer around marijuana users. I hope this makes sense, but if not, let's talk. I love you.
At the talkitupcolorado.org. And, I really appreciate this spot because, for so long, our spots, our little advertising campaigns have had to be about how bad prohibition is. We've got to end prohibition. It's terrible. All the terrible things that are happening because of marijuana prohibition. It's nice to finally have an ad that talks positively about marijuana use, that it's nothing to be ashamed of, that there doesn't have to be something wrong with you in order to use marijuana. In fact, for a lot of people, it's a smarter, safer decision.
And a recent ruling by the courts in Arizona is laying fears that businesses that are cheated out of money by a medical marijuana dispensary may not have a legal recourse to go after it. The case comes from two Arizonans, Mark Hale and Michelle Hammer, who loaned $500,000 to a medical marijuana company in Colorado. When that company that ran a medical marijuana dispensary failed to repay the loan, the couple sued. Maricopa County, Arizona Superior Court Judge Michael McVeigh threw the lawsuit out of court last week. He said that federal law prohibits marijuana possession for all reasons. Therefore, Hammer and Hale had no recourse to get their personal business loan back. In his ruling, he said, quote, the explicitly stated purpose of these loan agreements was to finance the sale and distribution of marijuana. That was in clear violation of the laws of the United States. As such, this contract is void and unenforceable. Now, those that watch the courts for decisions like this one are noting that McVeigh's ruling could make it impossible to enforce business agreements with medical marijuana companies. The managing partner of the law firm that represented Hale and Hammer, Randy Nussbaum, told the Arizona Republic, quote, the macro view of this is if it's true that anyone who has a contractual relationship with anyone dispensing medical marijuana and that contract is not enforceable, how does anyone enforce a legitimate contract in this business? Now, it is a question that legitimate business owners would rather not have to answer to every single vendor they do everyday business with. Russ, what do you think this ruling means to Arizona dispensaries?
Well, it just, underscores the fact that being a medical marijuana patient or being in the medical marijuana business just means you're a second-class citizen. You don't get your full Bill of Rights. Our Seventh Amendment guarantees that we have any sort of disputes in common law law above the value of $20, we have the right to sue people. We have the right to take it to court. We have the right to an impartial judge and or jury to decide these things. Unless it's medical marijuana. Unless your state has decided that sick and disabled people ought not to be thrown in a metal cage for their use of the safest therapeutically active substance known to man. In that case, you don't get your 7th Amendment. In fact, you don't get any of your first 10 Amendment rights. You don't get your freedom to religion, your freedom of press. We're going to stop you from being able to advertise. You don't get to have your concealed weapons permits. We're going to put GPSs on your car. Your trials can last years and years. You have to take drug tests to incriminate yourself. You're subject to cruel and unusual punishment. We don't have our states' rights. We don't have our natural rights that were granted to us by our Creator and recognized by our founding fathers. This is just the tragedy of American prohibition. It has decimated our rights and created an entire second-class citizenry among the people.
Hey, Russ, what do you think we try and be some second-class citizens and smoke some pot?
It's Ganja John.
I am here.
All right, let's do that. Be right back.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Norml Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would send you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Tune in to the Norml Network every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern for our primetime lineup. We begin with an hour of daily Toker tunes, followed by Norml Show Live and Toker Talk Radio, live from Rolla J Studios in Portland, Oregon. Then you get 2 hours of recorded podcasts from national and international reformers, followed by our late-night live shows at 11 p.m. Eastern. Then the whole 6-hour block repeats twice overnight. It's the Norml Network, your source for the best in marijuana media.
The Norml PAC, the political arm of Norml, makes contributions to members of Congress and select state legislators who support our policies and advance legislation towards that end. Elected officials need to see that those of us who support legalization are serious about changing policy, are about more than just getting high, and understand the importance of supporting politicians who support us. Please make a contribution today to the Norml PAC and send it to the Norml office in Washington, D.C., 1600 K Street Northwest, Suite 501, Washington, D.C., 20006. Or go to the Norml website and make a generous contribution. It is an investment in our future and will help assure we finally re-legalize the responsible use of marijuana in this country. Thank you.
It's time for your daily Toker tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Norml Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, welcome back, everybody. All this week I've been bringing you music that I picked up from Dallas, Texas, the DFW Norml Cinco de Mota celebration. Today is no different. I've been waiting for this day where we get to play the FNAs. I mean, I just love the band name right off the top, the FNAs. And you can find them at Facebook on the FNAs on Facebook and the FNAs on Twitter, EFFINAYS, the FNAs. FNAs on both of those. And they got this little EP, self-titled EP, the FNAs. And these guys are great musicians. Vocals by Joe Big Spook Martinez, bass by Jeremy Panblanco Peering, guitar by Shaggy, saxophone by Clyde Vasey, or Vasey, I'm not sure, trumpet by Steve Sydow, and drums and keys. This is the guy that caught my eye. Drums and keys by Valenti. Not drums and then keys. Drums and keys. The guy plays drums and keyboard lines at the same time. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen a musician pull off. The coordination for that is just incredible. So we're going to give it away here to the FNAs with Gypsy. Dig on this tune for your Groovin' Thursday.
Yeah.
That's music from the FNAs right out of Dallas, Texas. You guys got to check these guys out. The FNAs on Twitter, Facebook. Check them out. The FNAs. We are coming back with Cops Say Legalize Drugs. We'll be sitting in with Terry Nelson, and we'll be going on to rant after that. So stick around. It's Norml Show Live, voice of the Marijuana Nation. Thanks for being with us.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Been busted? Need a lawyer? Call the Norml Legal Committee for an attorney near you. Find one at norml.org. Remember, attorneys are cheaper than a lifelong criminal drug record.
It's that freedom. I'm
One of the most disturbing elements of the war on marijuana is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows firsthand the futility of the drug war and reaches out to the community and to current law enforcement to end our war on drugs through legalization. It's time now to speak to one such officer in our continuing look at law enforcement against prohibition.
All right, welcome back, folks. It's one of my favorite segments of the show, Cops Say Legalize Drugs, and today we have a fine speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition joining us. It's Terry Nelson. He's retired from the Customs and Border Protection Aviation Marine Group. He was a supervisor there and did all sorts of work for Department of Homeland Security into Mexico, Central America, South America, and so forth. Terry, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ruff. It's a real pleasure.
I'm so glad to have you here. You know, I was before we get into a story that I definitely wanted your comments on. We just played some comments from Mitt Romney, where he said that the medical marijuana wasn't an issue of much significance. We played comments from President Obama, where he's trying to walk back his earlier promises on leaving medical marijuana states alone. As someone who's worked in the federal government, what do you think is going on here with their always evolving positions on these issues?
Oh, they're all running for the Warren holes, what it really amounts to. But Mitt would probably have a different opinion on it if he had a kid that was facing 5 years in jail.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, we always hear, what about the children? But when it's one of your children, then it suddenly becomes an issue that's very important, right?
Well, right. And also, Russ, it's the hypocrisy of it all. The last three presidents admitted to using drugs, yet they got to be president. If they had been caught, they never would have. But they just want to make sure some other kid that gets caught doesn't get to be president. And that's just, it's hypocritical, and it's just completely wrong.
It is absolutely wrong. And, we also note that the United States population's rising support for marijuana legalization, at least. So we see an evolving position here amongst our public and among leaders in Central and South America, in Latin America that we've talked about. It used to be just former presidents that would come out. Now we've got the president of Guatemala, I believe Argentina, some Mexican presidents that have come out and said, we need to look at legalization. With your experience, having worked south of the border like this, tell us how they've come about to this new stand on the war on drugs.
Well, they finally just got tired of the hegemonic attitude of the United States, is do as we say and not as we do. They're suffering badly down there, Russ. They have tens of thousands of people dying in their countries each year for a lost cause, and they don't think that it's right that they have so many dying. And I can tell you this: if there were 50,000 people died in the United States of America in the last 5 years in this drug war, it would not be acceptable. But since they're Mexicans or South Americans or Central Americans, it's not such a big deal, or it seems not to be. It's terrible what's going on down there, and the callousness of our government towards the deaths and the tragic losses that these families are experiencing, because we have a prohibitionist drug policy and we've imposed it pretty much on the rest of the world.
Even when rarely do our news media, at least, away from the southern border states, rarely do we hear anything about the effect of the Mexican drug war. And when we do, we hear about, 50,000 dead, and then it's, they pass on to the next subject, whatever it might be. I think a seriously underreported part of this Mexican drug war is the terrorism against the Mexican population in the form of seeing banners hung up by the cartels, hanging burned bodies that have been decapitated, victims dropped out on the streets during rush hour with obvious signs of torture. Did you see this in your time down there? And what do you think the American public would do if they saw more of this on their news?
Well, I didn't see any of it personally, but I certainly saw in Florida back in the 1980s 2 Colombians that were boiled in oil because they were either suspected of being informants or whatever. No, but this is a new thing that the Mexicans picked up several years ago. I forget the name of it now, but they have a name for putting people in a 55-gallon drum of diesel and setting it on fire. And just day before yesterday, there were 19 bodies stuffed into a car, some of them decapitated. Of course, you can't show that on American television because we can't show those heinousness of this. And if you show the picture of someone hanging from a bridge with their entrails cut out hanging down, you can only show it from 250 yards away. You can't see the brutality of what's really happening. There are pictures that I have personally seen of headless bodies or heads laying on the center line of a highway down in the state of Morelia. So, no, if the American people were actually seeing this and could relate that these are human beings and that there's somebody's mother, father, brother, sister, daughter, or uncle, aunt, it's just tragic. And it's not an easy fix, Russ, but there's certainly a fix. And legalization of the drugs will take the profit out of it. It won't fix the drug problem. There's always going to be some people that abuse drugs, and I want to make a distinction between using and abusing. There are always going to be people that do that, and always have been, and always will be. And they need to be helped, not hurt, with a felony prison sentence.
Absolutely. We're speaking with Terry Nelson from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. The website there is leap.cc, and you can find a speaker like Terry or many others that they have, fabulous former law enforcement, former judicial people, former prison guards even, who will come to your local area and speak to your crowds about the need to end this war on drugs. So now, Terry, I did want to get into that news aspect of it a little bit. We're lucky here in Portland, Oregon, to have, I believe, 3 different Spanish language television networks that are coming on. As I flip through channels, I see their news shows, and they do seem to cover a little bit more of the brutality and even the scenes of the wailing mothers, let's say, really, despite the language barrier, of course, strikes right down into our hearts. And with the American population growing, the Hispanic American population growing as an electoral demographic here, how much do you think this Mexican drug war could impact our elections now and in the future with respect to our war on drugs?
Well, I think, of course, I'm going to be guessing, but I think that the election in Mexico is going to tether on 1 or 2 things. If the Mexican drug lord's candidate wins, then things are going to be pretty much the same because they like it this way. You got to remember, prohibition is a Mexican cartel's best friend. They're the ones that keep the price of these drugs so high. I don't know what the price of cannabis up is in your part of the country, but it's dropping like a rock down here in Texas because of the, I guess you could call it overflow or whatever. Since they've been closing down some of the medical marijuana dispensaries, the people that have been growing this stuff, they don't just throw it in the trash and burn it. They sell it someplace else, like any person in a free enterprise would do. So this is just proof that if it were legalized, the profits, the humongous profits that the cartels are making would go away, and they would not have the money to finance their terrorism acts And as well, we have a serious problem coming up abreast here in the United States. According to the latest FBI records, the gangs, street gangs in the United States are just adding, magnifying like flies, so to speak. And as long as you have the street gangs and they can sell these more expensive narcotics, that's what you're going to be doing, and they're going to be using that money to basically create street terrorism in cities like L.A. and Chicago, New York, wherever they have the street gangs, which is in at least 1,000 cities in the United States today. Yeah. So I'll always quote President Bush. He said the best way to fight terrorism is to cut off the money supply. The best way to fight narco-terrorism is to cut off the money supply, and the best way to cut off the money supply is to legalize it and regulate and control the distribution. Now, the only way I know to regulate and control anything, it has to be legal. So therefore, we first have to legalize it. Yeah, nobody's shooting anyone up over the trafficking routes for Dos Equis, Corona, or Jose Cuervo. So not last time I checked, they had anyway. Yeah. Now, Terry, you were just quoted in a story that's been a lot of people have been tweeting this to me from the Houston Chronicle, and it's a story of a grandmother in Houston named Elisa Castillo. Can you tell us a little bit about her fate and how this just shows how corrupt our judicial systems come because of the drug war? Well, of course, I can't attest to it personally. I know the basics of the story, and I know that she was convicted of a continuing criminal enterprise, and she was given life in prison, although she had no prior arrest record. To what I know, she might, and once again, I want to reiterate, I don't know the other side of the story. I don't know the evidence that the federal government presented against her or had in abeyance, so to speak. But from all appearances, she got caught up into an operation or an intrigue that was beyond her control. And once she got involved in it, if she knew the details, it's questionable. Of course, if the government said she did and gave her life in prison. But the point of it is, cartel members that have something to trade get 15, 20, 25 years. This lady got life in prison. She got more than a cartel member that's probably responsible for hundreds or thousands of deaths. Right. That was something the Houston Chronicle story was pointing out. The quote in the Chronicle says, Castillo said she has nothing to offer in a system rife with inconsistencies and behind-the-scenes scrambling that amounts to a judicial game of let's make a deal, where if you have someone to turn over on, someone to snitch on, you can get a plea bargain, get your sentence reduced. But if you're the mother, the girlfriend, the wife who is just an ancillary part of these things, you can end up doing 3, 4, 5 times as much prison time as the people who are really moving the drugs and hurting the people. And the propaganda is so strong against by the government against drug dealers that this lady may have been innocent. Now, she was found guilty in a court of law and under appeals. But I just have a serious doubt that she deserved life in prison for her part in this continuing criminal enterprise. Since Manuel Noriega didn't get near that many years, and he moved a heck of a lot more than 1,000 pounds of cocaine into this country. Yeah. Now, it not only just breaks up these big places like that, but let's just take a small friendship group and someone within the friendship group gets busted. The first thing the cops do is start leaning on him, trying to make him rat out his friends. Think what that does to a social network of friends. It just destroys the very thing that we need most in this country, which is, closeness. And let's group hug time. Let's put it that way. We don't need to be destroying what little faith we have in mankind anymore anyway. Very well said. Terry Nelson from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. You guys are doing great work out there getting the information out and using the gravitas of being a former law enforcement official to help convince people of the need to legalize drugs. We have about 30 seconds here before I let you go. Anything else you'd like to tell our listeners? No, it's just that we at LEAP have been working on a white paper to put out about the seizure laws. It's not going to be out for probably another at least 30 days, but we're really excited about putting this white paper out, showing the disparity and basically the theft by badge. We'll see how it comes out, but we're really excited about it, and we'll be happy to share it once it comes out. All right, fantastic. Terry Nelson from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Everybody, the website is leap.cc, leap.cc. And Terry, thanks for joining us again here on Norml Show Live. Thanks for having me, Russ. Take care. When we come back,
you're listening to Norml Show Live. the voice of the marijuana nation.
When we come back, a look at Oregon dispensaries. Stick around.
17 states and the District of Columbia have legalized the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. Over 70% of the American public supports the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. What does Governor Mitt Romney think of medical marijuana?
So medical marijuana is legal in Colorado. One of our viewers, Bill Ferguson, asked, should marijuana be legalized for medical use?
Aren't there issues of significance that you'd like to talk about?
The medicinal use of marijuana is a significant issue to the millions suffering from cancer, AIDS, and other chronic pain, nausea, spasticity, and seizure disorders.
I think marijuana should not be legal in this country. I believe it's a gateway drug to other drug violations. The use of illegal drugs in this country is leading to terrible consequences in places like Mexico and actually in our own country.
Okay.
I oppose legalization of marijuana.
I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Farrock has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Smells like a skunk.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, folks, there is a lot of news going around here in the state of Oregon about our rapidly evolving dispensary scene. That's just what I'm going to call it. I mean, cooperative patient club, whatever it is, it's a place where money walks in and marijuana walks out. And I got nothing against that, but the news is starting to pick up on this. This is video from our largest newspaper, The Oregonian.
Medical marijuana is big business in Oregon. More than 55,000 people here are allowed to use the drug to treat their health problems. An industry of collectives, co-ops, and cafes has sprung up to meet patient demand for pot. Police and prosecutors say many of these places operate outside the law.
The legislature and the voters decided not to legalize dispensaries, but yet there's 170 of them that we know of operating in Oregon. We're very concerned about the public safety element of that, and especially when there doesn't appear to, other than these few prosecutions that we know about, which so far appear to be contained to Washington County and Josephine County, it's kind of like no one's watching the hen house.
The Human Collective in Tigard serves medical marijuana patients. People can walk in and pay for marijuana here.
On average, patients will use about 2 ounces per month per patient. We always reference the strain, that it's for medical use only, and the Oregon statute associated with it. Human Collective was founded for the sole purpose of bringing professionalism, ethics, and public responsibility to the medical marijuana industry. My father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he passed away after, he passed away within 6 months of diagnosis, and he was only 66 years old. Unfortunately, he was not willing to try medical marijuana, and it broke my heart because I feel that his painful life in that last 6 months could have been that much more comfortable had he actually tried medical cannabis. So I don't want to see other people suffer.
Michael Fowler has been an Oregon medical marijuana patient for a couple years. He uses it to treat nausea caused by kidney disease.
I was nauseous 24 hours a day for like months and months until a friend suggested I might try marijuana. It worked really good, but it was completely unaffordable, especially in Utah, and completely illegal. I didn't want to break the law anymore. It was pretty scary in Utah. They have some pretty harsh penalties. So I came to Oregon. The Human Collective opened. It's like a dispensary, but it's all based on reimbursement rates, so it seems pretty safe. And now I was finally able to afford the medicine to actually make it medicine where I could take it every time I needed it. The collective has changed my life.
Fowler said he uses marijuana daily to cope with his symptoms. When he needs more pot, he visits the Collective, where he can get up to an ounce a week. He used to buy it on the black market.
Are you here for Med Express today?
I am indeed.
Okay.
I would like to put $8 on my account.
Okay. The Collective can't sell marijuana, but Oregon law allows patients to reimburse marijuana growers for certain costs. Marijuana growers who supply the Human Collective set their own prices. Sarah Bennett, who runs the Collective, told the Oregonian she believes in what she is doing, and she said she'd welcome state regulation.
We need to provide the safe access necessary and in a professional and ethical manner with the spirit and intent of the law. Unfortunately, the state of Oregon legislature, as well as the citizens and the voters, we've all failed right now to provide that next level of safe access, of regulating dispensaries, requiring medicine to be tested. And so we're doing that on our own because nobody wanted to take on that responsibility.
Once he gets a supply of marijuana, Fowler can get high at home. Fowler said places like the Human Collective fill an important need for people who use medical marijuana. In Oregon, medical marijuana patients can grow pot or have someone do it for them. Fowler said that turns out to be a disaster for a lot of people. Tales of unreliable or dishonest growers are common. He said the Human Collective allows him to get the pot he needs with a minimum of risk or cost.
Right now, this is because of the mix I just did. I'm feeling really relaxed. Muscle loosens up and stuff. Like my back was hurting, but it's not anymore.
Patients like Fowler have come to rely on collectives, clubs, and co-ops in Oregon, but it's not clear they're legal. Still, when it comes to medical marijuana, Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Shrunk says he's got other priorities.
You know, if you run out of here and say, golly, Multnomah County DA is starting a war on dispensaries, you know, people say, well, what about the gang shootings? What about the fraud, the elder abuse, the sexual exploitation of children? You know, shouldn't that be up higher on your list? Well, the answer is yes. Is it a legal problem? You know, you look at what's going on around the country. You know, we've come a long way since reefer madness, I think.
I'll tell you what, it's really nice to hear my district attorney say that we've come a long way since reefer madness, and we need to keep moving further away from that reefer madness. Sarah Bennett, just a full disclosure, a friend of my family's, friend of mine's, so I think she does a great job out there at Human Collective, and there's a lot of people doing a really good job trying to work around the terrible situation we have here where we've created legal consumers, but we've done nothing to provide legal supply for them. We're supposed to depend on the weed fairy dropping things out of the sky, I suppose. And the problem that this creates is it sets up this cognitive dissonance with the voters that are going to be confused as to what the hell's really going on. The voters here in Oregon twice have struck down attempts to create dispensaries back in 2004 and in 2010. A legal, regulated, tax-paying industry to supply medical marijuana to sick and disabled patients. And this has been struck down in part, I think, because they think they'd be approving or increasing problems, or not improving problems or increasing problems, when in fact the problem is that we don't have regulation. So the law of supply and demand, being what it is, has led to patient clubs and farmers markets and cooperatives and cafes, and well, they're all just euphemisms for money walks in and marijuana walks out, or what most of us would call dispensaries. Now, here's the deal. Oregon's medical marijuana law does allow patients and caregivers to freely exchange medicine and plants. So, in one novel interpretation of the law, caregivers are merely donating their medicine and plants to the patient. Then, in a completely separate and uncoordinated transaction, the patient, out of the goodness of his or her heart, merely donates some cash to the caregiver, which randomly happens to always be somewhere between $10 a gram and $200 an ounce. It's kind of like how under Citizens United, super PACs can run attack ads for a candidate, but they are completely separate and uncoordinated activities. In another creative reading of the statute, some places will charge a membership fee or an entry fee to enter a club designed for patients to medicate within. Now, the explanation is that patients need a place to recreate where they can medicate. I completely agree with that. I mean, people that take insulin or Vicodin or OxyContin, they can go to baseball games, they can go to movie theaters, they can go to restaurants, and if they need to medicate, they can. Medical marijuana users don't always have that ability, especially since our law says they may not medicate in public view. God forbid anyone ever saw a joint. But the problem with these cafes and clubs is everyone with a card can get in. Patients, caregivers, and growers, and nobody bothers to determine which of those cards are held by the people smoking the bongs and hitting the vaporizers. Now, inside, one can visit the various growers who pay a vendor fee to rent a cubicle there within the club. Now, the growers in the club, as well as the growers throughout the state, make use of another flexible part of the Oregon medical marijuana law that states that a patient can reimburse a caregiver grower for the expenses incurred in growing marijuana, but not for labor. The key words there are a patient and a grower, which is notably not the patient and the grower. Because if you use the word the or the, that would mean that the patient could only reimburse the person they had specifically designated to be their specific grower when they filled out their Oregon medical marijuana program paperwork. But since it uses the word a grower, that means any patient can reimburse any grower. So all the electricity, soil, lights, ballast, water, nutrients, and so forth incurred during the harvest are all tallied up by the grower, who then divides that figure by the total yield, and then the patient reimburses the grower that amount based on how much weight of medicine is dispensed. Or at least that's how you'd think the law's dictates would force you to have to do a reimbursement. But whether you grow 2 plants hydroponically under a single 600-watt lamp in Portland, or you grow 24 plants under massive indoor soil grows with thousands of watts of lights in Eugene, or you grow 96 plants outdoors in ideal weather of Medford, somehow everybody's expense reimbursements with no labor costs always tally up to between $10 a gram and $200 an ounce. And nobody ever bothers to check any growers' power or water bills or garden supply receipts. Weird, huh? And where in the world do people like Dwight Holton get off calling this program a train wreck? How in the world do opponents of medical marijuana come up with this meme of abuse? So the dispensaries that voters shot down twice are here, as we all knew they would be, eventually, because you can't have 60,000 legal consumers and 0 legal retail suppliers. The voters mistakenly thought it was a vote between dispensaries or no dispensaries. In reality, it was a vote between regulated tax-paying dispensaries and unregulated gray market dispensaries, and we chose the latter. It would be nice if the Mother Teresa model worked and every patient could be matched up with an altruistic caregiver and grower, but it just ain't so. So people who have always made money on marijuana growing and selling continue to make money on marijuana growing and selling, and the state continues to miss out on huge economic opportunities. A state, by the way, that has no sales tax and brutal property taxes to make up for it, where revenues are short, and there is one growing, pardon the pun, industry begging to be legal and taxed. Oregonians, we just have to regulate this thing. We have to come up with a reasonable set of regulations and allow the patients in this program safe, legal, reliable access. Create the jobs, create the tax revenue, fix our economy here in Oregon, and just recognize that it ain't going anywhere. And who knows, maybe by this November, we'll just be voting to legalize it all anyway, and we can stop trying to figure out who's healthy enough to put in a cage for pot. I'm Radical Russ for Ganja John and Wiz Khalifa and Cannabis Carry. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2. We got more from the U.S. House. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
You're listening to the Norml Network, where the time